Welcome to the Kingdompreneur Life Podcast with your hosts, Doreen and Pat Martin.
Well, hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us again for our podcast. And this is podcast number 14. And you haven't heard from us live like this in some time. It's been about 4 weeks, and we want to share with you what's been going on. And many of you have been praying for Doreen, and we thank you for your prayers. Hey, babe, say hello to everybody and let them know you're here with me.
Hi, everyone. We have not recorded an episode in about 4 weeks, but I did pre-record some episodes with Candace, Birch, and Nicholas. And if you have not heard those podcasts, you might want to go back and listen to them. They're really great.
Well, excellent, too. And Nicholas, he's known as the heart hacker, and he's really been a blessing to our family.
Mm-hmm. He has done some counseling with us individually and as a family, so he's great for helping you to get your heart healed and anything that might be holding you back. And Candace, she's a woman that I met that helped me with regulating my hormones. So she's all about women's health and hormones. So go ahead and check them out.
Excellent. I think you guys are really going to enjoy it. But why don't we do this? Let's start off with a scripture. And this is the scripture God's put upon my heart. And it is Philippians chapter 3, verse 14. And this comes from the Apostle Paul writing to the church at Philippi. And he says, I press on toward the goal for the prize of the upward call of God in Christ Jesus. So it's about pressing forward and pressing on and not looking back. And this is so relevant to where we are today for Doreen and I. And that is not looking back at what's happened to us here this past 30 days, but looking forward and pressing forward and looking forward to what God has for us.
Absolutely.
And so, babe, why don't you share with us share with everybody where we kind of left off, and in our last podcast. And we had just gotten back from spending a month in May and June back in the Tampa, Florida area, because Hannah Piper, we went back for her high school graduation. So let's pick up from there.
So we had just gotten back from the States, as Pat said, and we were in the middle of trying to find a new place to live. We had rented a condo. We had a 2-year contract, and we had some hiccups with that contract with the owner of that condo, and we knew it was time for us to find a new place to live. So that's basically what we were doing. We were trying to find a place to live so that we could move out of our current place.
Well, and we realized, too, that down here in Ecuador, contracts really don't mean much of anything. And we also, there was a little speed bump there with our utilities and our owner forgetting to pay them. And we had to pick them up and realize that the utilities were dealing with the HOA. They were double dipping. And what should have cost us right around $50 to $60 a month for utilities, that's water and electric, it was costing us $550 a month. So we were ready to get out of there, and we've been blessed with a beautiful home right here on the beach in 2 towns, 2 little villages, which were probably about 3 miles away from the condo. But babe, share with everybody, how this came to be and how you really, how we saw the house the first time and what God was speaking to your heart.
So we got down here in December, and we had met up with some friends, went over their house to see. They have a beautiful house that they built. They're from the States. And right next door was this house that we're currently in. And I remember seeing it, walking on the beach and saying to Pat, that is going to be our house someday. That's going to be our house. I didn't know how, I didn't know when, because we had a 2-year contract with the condo. And so when we were in the position of having to find a new place, I said to Pat, hey, call, and see about that house. Maybe that's where we're supposed to be. And so Pat called I guess the owner, right? Did you call
Well,
him?
yeah, it took a while to even track him down, to get his contact info, because things just don't move really fast down. And people, even the realtor, when we were dealing with her, she knew the guy's first name, but wasn't sure, because she hadn't met the guy. This was all done via the emails and the internet, so it was tough to even just to track the guy down.
So he ended up tracking the guy down. He lives in the States, and he met with him while we were in the States, but the gentleman had already put this house under contract with somebody else and really wasn't interested in renting us the house or selling us the house, anything like that. So we kind of just like put it on the shelf, and then when we were flying back to Ecuador from our trip in the States, we were in Panama and we were having dinner. And I remember, saying to Pat, hey, I think you need to call the owner again, even though you met with him and he's like not interested in selling, renting anything to us. Call him again and ask him if he'll rent the property to us. Just rent it for however long he can. And so, Pat, I think you text him.
Yeah, I texted him. We were there in Panama City, and I texted him, and I threw out there that, because the place was vacant, and when you have a vacant house right on the Pacific Ocean, it needs maintenance. And when somebody's not living here, or when somebody's living in a house, things are cleaned up. Things are, because it's used, it's better for the house. And he was open. He came back and said, "Yeah, I'll rent it to you guys, but know this, that I can do it like on a month-to-month basis." And then, guys, it worked out. A miracle worked out again, that he's going to rent it to us to the end of the year. And the guy that is going to buy the house, the new buyers on the house, would like to continue to rent it to us for another 6 months.
So that was really like an answer to prayer for us. The guy went from a no, I don't want to rent it to you, I don't want to sell it to you, I've already got something else lined up, to just a couple of weeks later, we tried again, we knocked on the door again, and he was like, yes, I'll rent it to you, and I'll rent it to you to the end of the year, and then we'll see if the new buyers will continue to rent it to us, and the new buyers are. So it was just a blessing for us that we got into this new location. It's a house, it's not a condo, which fits better for our family than living in a condo, and we're right on the ocean, and it's just beautiful. So we are enjoying the move, and that's where we ended up starting to get sick. So we moved into the house, and of course, when I do something, I like to do it until it's finished. So I remember my sister texting me, and she's like, take it slow with the move and everything like that. So of course, when I move into a house, everything has got to be cleaned because this had been vacant. So everything I wanted cleaned, and I'm scrubbing cabinets, and I'm scrubbing drawers, and I'm killing bugs and everything, right? And I just wore myself out and didn't get enough sleep. And when I don't get enough sleep, I get run down. And so I got sick.
And
like cold sick, like sick with a cold type of thing.
she did. She got sick with a cold, and it was I get assigned to take care of cleaning up the yard, taking care of all that stuff. And when she talked about bugs, guys, I don't really think that there's these big roaches that you can put a saddle on and ride them. It's ants. And
ants and spiders.
Yeah, little bitty ants, little bitty spiders that look like ants that crawled into my laptop, and just those little nuisance things. And the air conditioner units didn't work; they were supposed to have worked. So we were in the process of taking all that stuff, and Doreen gets sick. I take her to the doctor, and the doctor looks her over and gives her some medication, some IVs. There's an internal MD down here that's also holistic, that does holistic IVs. And we've been treated by him since we got down here in December.
Mm-hmm.
And
he's a really good friend of ours, too. He's just really sweet. He trained in the States.
He was there for 30 years?
Yeah, I think so, in Oregon, right?
Oregon, Chicago area, maybe Kansas City. But, for 30 years he was in the States.
Yep, really sweet, really sweet. So we go to his office, which is like an hour away from our home, and he gives Pat an IV because Pat's not feeling that great, but he gives me an IV, and I have some kind of reaction to the IV.
Getting sick to your stomach?
I got sick to my stomach and just, I don't really know, just was too much for my body.
You got super dehydrated.
Yeah, I got super dehydrated, is right. So we ended up staying the night at the doctor's house because I was too sick to come back to our house because it would have been an hour drive to come back to our home. So we ended up staying at the doctor's house, and Pat and the doctor are like up all night kind of taking care of me. I'll talk up until I can remember.
Okay.
So, I was just like really sick and just, Pat's taking care of me through the night. The doctor's taking care of me through the night. They're trying to get me to drink like Gatorade or Pedialyte, some garbage, which I just couldn't drink. It was just disgusting. But I'm drinking some tea. I'm just in and out of sleeping, not sleeping. And the morning comes, and that's where I don't remember anything else after that. So you can go ahead and take the morning comes.
Well, early in the morning, Doreen just couldn't. She lay down for like 30 seconds, and I'm thinking, oh my God, I got her to lay back down. I can also get some sleep. And as soon as she lay down, she would sit back up, and she felt like she was going to get sick and throw up. And so I had got her the plastic, little plastic bag, and it was just awful. And the morning arrives. And I get her like a half of a banana. I'm getting her to drink water because she won't drink anything to hydrate her up. I didn't have our ionic elements, which is our super minerals, trace minerals, and electrolytes, and I wish I had that. But
and the doc left, right? He
yes.
left. He was gone by the time the morning came because he had to go and take care of patients. So he was not there to see me in the morning, even though we were at his house.
So at this point, my goal was just to get Doreen back home, and she hadn't gotten sick in a while, in like an hour, and so I'm feeling kind of comfortable. However, I'm noticing that from the early morning hours until the mid-morning hours, Doreen is not with me. In other words, I'm talking to her, but she's not talking back, and I see her not being lucid. And at that point, I tried to. I got her ready, and I packed up the doc left his SUV for us. So I got our personal items down to the SUV. I came back up to get her, and I'd get her to stand up. And as soon as she'd stand up, she'd sit back down. And I'm ready to go, and Doreen gets sick to her stomach again, and it's just just water basically, and so at this point I get her to the bathroom, and so we're in the bathroom, and at that point I'm just trying to take care of her and make a game plan, and she slips and falls, and she's sitting down, little chair, sitting down, and she slips and really just kind of passes out. And this is over, a period of maybe 30 minutes, an hour here, and she hits her head, and she's completely knocked unconscious, and I've got to help keep her breathing, and blood goes everywhere. She hits her forehead, and later on the doctor said if she'd lost any more blood, she would have needed blood transfusion. So she's got a gash in her forehead. Fortunately, the doctor's girlfriend was there, and she calls for an ambulance, which took over 20 minutes for them to arrive and another 15 minutes for them to figure out how to get her downstairs in the elevator and loaded up. And it was just, in that sense, ridiculous.
Let me just interject. So the first blessing was that at least we were in my doc's home, because if we were in our home, it would have taken us an hour drive to get to any kind of medical care, and there's no ambulance in our town. So we would have taken a taxi to get medical care. Now, this happened in our doc's home, which he lives in a big city, and of course the medical care is like right there, 10 minutes away from his home. So that was like blessing number one, that Pat did not get me home. That it all happened where it happened. But go ahead.
And so we finally, the ambulance takes her. I'm keeping her breathing, and mind you, her eyes are open, but she's not responding. So I pick her up off the floor. I get her into the bedroom. I keep the compression on her forehead because she's bleeding. And any head injuries, blood goes everywhere. And so I am praying. And anyways, we get her to the hospital, and she's not responding. Her eyes are open, and they stitch her up. And our doctor friend, he actually goes 2 hours away to the big city, and we find out he's not there locally for us. And so we have to wait for him to come back. She's in the emergency room, and from there, guys, it's just not knowing why she's not responding. And it's crazy. I don't know that sodium levels can drop so low that it can be critical and dangerous.
Yeah, and you have to remember too, like everybody in the hospital speaks Spanish, okay? Nobody's speaking English, so he's trying to get me medical care and not know the language. Our doc, of course, is bilingual, but he's not there. He's
2 hours away.
He's 2 hours away, so he's trying to talk to the doc 2 hours away on the phone. He's trying to get me medical care, and of course, the medical care here is not like it is in the States, so it's... Go ahead, baby.
Yeah, it's just different. So at this point, I'm trying to figure out what's going on. The doctors, I hear what the words they're telling me, but I see what's going on in their faces. And later on, they told me that when Doreen came in, they didn't think she was going to make it. And that was when you're down in a third world country. I'm telling you what, it was just I was scared. Bottom line, I was scared.
He had texted the kids. You said you text the kids. The kids were at the hospital with him. They're all there trying to figure out how to get me better. And of course, I have no recollection of any of this. I'm not there.
And when the kids showed up, I didn't have a change of clothes, and so my T-shirt's covered in blood, and it's on the side of my face. I'm not looking in the mirror. I'm not seeing all this stuff. And so my kids see it, and they just like, oh my God, what's happened to Mom? And why, Dad, are you okay? And I'm fine. And they just, my son is just, beside himself, and so is Hannah. And so at this point, the doctor arrives a couple hours later. In the meantime, we're trying to get Doreen taken care of, and they clean her up, they get her stitched up, and the doctor finally shows up, and we decided, hey, we got to get her checked into a room. So we get her into a room, and the neurosurgeon comes, and he does a test on her foot, and I've heard something Badinsky or whatever test it was, and it didn't turn out favorable. And he says there's some neurological things going on, and it's not a positive test when he scrapes something on the bottom of the foot. And I'm about halfway believing the guy or not, and I'm just wondering what we should do. And at this point, because she's not responding, we're there in the room. We decide to put her in ICU, and at this point, Doreen is more or less in a coma state. Her eyes are open. But she's not responding, and she's not lucid. It's just a scary situation. And as soon as we get her into ICU, they give her a catheter, thank God, because her bladder was full of almost 2 liters, and that was crazy. And finally, I go in and see her. The doctor pulls the string because he's friends with the owner of the hospital. It's a private hospital. And I'm able to put on the cap and gown and the doctor's gown, all that stuff, and go in and see her. And now I finally see her. She's at peace. She's completely out of it, but she's at peace. And so now the waiting game. They check her. By the way, they take her down and they do a CAT scan on her. And thank God there's no fractures, there's no bruising, there's no brain damage or anything like that. And again, we're at a loss. So that night, I stay at the hospital, and when it comes to waiting rooms, there's like 5 chairs, and it's a cold tile floor. There's not much there. It's not like it is in the States. And so I send the kids home, and I wait there. I just wait there. There's nothing I can do. The doctor goes home. I can't go in and see Doreen unless the doctor pulls strings and I kind of sneak in to see her. But I'm not going to leave. I'm going to stay there.
And so I was like out for, I guess, 2 days. Is that what it was? Friday, Saturday?
Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, out for 3 days. And at that point, guys, I put the word out. I put the word out to as many people I know that love Jesus, that can pray and reach the throne of heaven for us. At that point, we had people staying up all night praying for breakthroughs. I mean, literally praying at 2, 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the morning, staying up and calling friends and my church pastor friends, pulling their prayer teams together, praying for Doreen. And it was just, it was a awesome thing to be able to call on friends across the world and across.
Not just that, but the friends that we made here, they were bringing Pat food in the hospital.
Riding an hour away on the bus.
Yeah, coming to visit him in the hospital, bringing him food, having him go and take a shower at their house, just making sure that he's okay, the kids were okay. So our little family here just really came through and was there for you as well.
So guys, it was a waiting game, and we saw miracles take place, and Doreen wasn't responding. They weren't sure why she wasn't responding. They said with a head injury, and they checked her sodium levels, came up ridiculously low, and critically low. And they said it just has to take time. And as her 2 days later, her sodium level came up, and they said that she came to, and could speak some. And when she came to, could speak, it wasn't speaking. It was just like, I need to go to the bathroom. But she didn't know where she was, and she didn't recognize me. And guys, this is kind of funny. When she did come to, she came to for just a minute. And she started scooting off the edge of the bed because she was going to leave. And now, mind you, she's got IVs and all kinds of stuff in. And she looks at me and says, "Get out of my way." And I said, "Oh, no, babe, you got to lay back down." And then Doreen, she started hitting me, pulling my hair. It was kind of fun. She didn't hurt me, but she was like, who are you? And get out of my way. And so we had to sedate her, and in which I felt was a really positive, wonderful sign. I was so happy that she came to, and that was after 2.5 days. And so they sedated her, they put her out, and that was in the evening one night. And the next morning, about 4 o'clock in the morning, 5 o'clock in the morning, the doc shows up, and Doreen is out again. And he shows up, and he stands at the foot of the bed, and he can't figure it out, and he prays and says, "God, give me a sign." And Doreen wakes up and recognizes the doc and says, do you remember this part?
No, I don't.
She recognizes the doc and says, "Hey, Dr. G, what's going on? Where am I?" And now she's talking, being normal. She's not... And by the way, after she hit me, they put her out, and they didn't give her enough sedative, and they wanted me out of the room. She ends up taking out 2 nurses and a doctor. She kicks one nurse and drops one nurse to the floor. Can I share with them the kind of, how you were talking to them?
I guess. I don't know if I believe it.
Well, Well, I didn't know my wife could cuss like a drunken sailor, but apparently she was giving them what for, and calling them a few choice words. And thank God that the nurse is going to be okay. She smacked the doctor pretty good, and she ripped out her IVs and so forth. And so they had to really sedate her again. So anyways, the next morning you wake up, the doctor's praying at the edge of the bed, and you start talking to him. And we just, we start praising God.
Yeah. I remember waking up and not knowing, like, I couldn't comprehend, like, why was I in this room? I didn't recognize, at that time the doc wasn't there, I didn't recognize any people that were sitting around my bed. There was like a person sitting watching me, and I didn't know if I was dreaming or what was going on.
Well, we had to have somebody watch you because the doctors, they kicked me out of the room, but they restrained you because they didn't want you hurting yourself or hurting anybody else by ripping out IVs and so forth. And you woke up being restrained, and you're looking at the guy looking at you going, and you're like, who are you? And he's like, no habla English, which was crazy. And he's calling for people. She's awake, because, again, guys, here in Ecuador and in this hospital, they said when people go into ICU, they don't come back out.
So yeah, so it was definitely a miracle, a blessing that I came to, and you took me home on Sunday.
I took you home that night. That was early in the morning, and we tried to, it took a while to figure, they did not want to let her go. They didn't want to let Doreen go, and I'm saying, yeah, she's going, we're out of here. I got to get her home. And so it took a miracle from God to get her out of the hospital, get her released. We had to release ourselves, or she had to release herself, and I had to release her and get her home. And on the way home, we dropped the doc off at his house. He loans his SUV, and when we're leaving the doc's place, Doreen is so lucid now. There's a new favorite place. We've only been there one time, and they have acai bowls. Acai bowls in a organic fruit smoothie place, and she's hungry. She hasn't eaten in 3 days, or 3.5 days, and she goes, I know where we are, just around the corner. And we were like a block away. And sure enough, so and the doctor said, you can't eat anything. She goes, I don't care, I'm going to eat. So I pull in, and we get her acai bowls. And
I think I had a couple of spoonfuls of the acai.
Yeah, she had 2 or 3 spoonfuls, and we drove home.
So now it's been 4 weeks. Since my accident, and the recovery. I have every day I'm getting better. Every day I see improvement. I have little times where I still get a little dizzy. But again, every day is getting better. And if you can hear somewhat in my speech, sometimes is a little slower. The thinking of what I'm going to say and being able to say it sometimes is slowed up a little bit with my brain. And I'm sleeping a lot less. I was sleeping a lot when we got home, taking naps constantly, so I'm sleeping a lot less. And the miracle of this all is my mom and my sister came, they had their plane tickets already booked before the accident. So
they came a week later?
Yeah, they came a week after my accident, and they were here for 3 weeks taking care of me.
And they just left?
Yep, they just left. So that was a blessing to have my mom and my sister here. The kids have all been pitching in. Pat's been amazing and pitching in and just taking really good care of me. And while I get well, Doc says it could be anywhere from 9 months to a year till I'm fully back. But we're believing it's going to be, a lot sooner than that. It's only been a month, and I'm doing amazing.
Well, you're 100%, and I think the doc has come back, and I've had conversations with him, and he says it could even be as quick as 30 days, but not to get our hopes up, but he thinks in your case maybe 60 days, maybe 90 days at the most. But he says you can never, ever tell with somebody's had a back concussion, head injury, and not to push it. And, and if any of you know my wife, you know that not pushing it is probably not on her menu, and she's already done TRX a couple of times. For you guys who know TRX, that's working out with the straps and things. Though she'll go, well, I'm just taking it easy. She's not supposed to do any of that.
I think that's the hardest thing for me is I want to be back 100%. And so I get frustrated with myself because I'm not 100%. So anyway, do you want to end this podcast? And then we could talk a little bit more on the next podcast, maybe about, moving forward and what we've learned from this experience and what God was teaching us. And
well, that's going to be on our next podcast.
Yes.
Well, guys, let's just wrap this up. And first, thank you for
your prayers, your love. There's so much love and encouragement and prayers that came through via text, via Facebook. So appreciate every one of you that have reached out. People have sent me gifts, sent me things to help me to heal. Just beautiful, beautiful, beautiful friends that we have, and we're so grateful.
We are. We're so grateful.
Even our little community here, people came, they brought me food, anything that Pat needed, meals, or everything, they were right here. It's just been wonderful just to feel all the love from everybody.
It is. It's just, it's amazing.
So what was your scripture? Press on.
Toward the goal for the prize of the upward call of God in Christ Jesus. So for us, it's not looking back, oh my God, this terrible, tragic thing. We had a move and the condo didn't work out, and that should have worked out, but God had a better plan for us. We had this beautiful house. We got here. The air conditionings aren't working, but the owner of the place allowed us to buy air conditionings, take that off of our rent bill, and thank God for that. And then the accident happened, and we need to not look back, but we are pressing forward, looking forward, and not being like Lot's wife. We are looking forward to the beautiful things and not being derailed. It's kind of like maybe God's detour doesn't mean it's a derail. It's a detour, knowing that God will cause all things to work together for the good of those who love Him. So we're pressing forward.
Amen.
All right, guys. Ciao for now. Thanks for joining us.
Ciao, ciao.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to the Kingdompreneur Life podcast. Don't forget to join us next week for another inspiring episode. We'd love for you to head over to iTunes to subscribe and leave a review. We love reading all your comments. You can also connect with us on our websites. Pat is CoachPatMartin.com, just like it sounds, CoachPatMartin.com. And Doreen is found at RawDoreen.com. That's RAWDOREEN.com. You can download your free gift that will help you live life uncluttered and rich with purpose.